Yoshinobu Yamamoto didn't win the Cy Young in 2025, but after what we just saw, 2026 might be his year to take over baseball.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Harry Ruiz. That's Travis Rogers, and it's time for Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. On today's episode, some changes behind the plate, a familiar face departs, and a new one joins the Dodgers catching depth chart. Shohei Ohtani's 3-homer, 10-strikeout masterpiece gets named MLB's legendary moment of the year. But first, Yoshinobu Yamamoto finishes third in Cy Young voting. But is he on the verge of owning that award in 2026, Travis?
I certainly think it's a possibility, and as long as he keeps doing what he's doing in October, he got the Travis and Harry Cy Young Award. That is for sure. Today's episode of Locked On Dodgers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download that FanDuel app today.
Travis is holding it down every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. with the Travis and DeMarco Show on the radio, 710 ESPN LA, or on your phone via the ESPN LA app. Me, I'm behind the mic for USC and the Raiders doing play-by-play in Spanish, but when I'm not calling touchdowns on weekends, I'm right here breaking down Dodger baseball with you. First time tuning in, welcome to the squad and to our everydayers. You're the real MVPs of Locked On Dodgers. Yoshinobu Yamamoto's Cy Young year coming soon. You know, finishing third in Cy Young voting doesn't sound flashy at first until you realize who Yoshinobu Yamamoto was competing against. Paul Skenes had an outstanding season. That's why he won the award unanimously. Christopher Sanchez was the runner-up with a similar ERA to Yamamoto's, but threw nearly 30 more innings than Yoshi. And yet, the Japanese hurler in just his second year in the majors was right there with them. And Travis, I feel that if it were for a couple of more runs of support from the batters with the Dodgers, his win-loss record would have looked different, and it could have been a little bit closer when it comes to the voting. But third in voting in his second year in baseball, in Major League Baseball, I would give him a round of applause right there. And let's remember, once again, we've been talking about it, these awards get voted on before the postseason happens.
Yeah, he had an extraordinary year, but I don't think anybody came within a mile of Paul Skenes. And that has nothing to do with Yamamoto. It has everything to do with Skenes. I know I've told this story before. My everydayers will certainly remember this. I went to the game at Dodger Stadium where Skenes and Yamamoto faced off. It was relatively early in the season. It was probably in early May, something like that. And Skenes is something I've never seen before. I mean, it is just a whole nother. Yamamoto was just okay that night. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't like peak Yamamoto that we saw later in the season. But Skenes is just operating on a different level. It's just, it really is something else. He is huge. He is calm. He is aggressive. He is dialed. Everything that you could want from a guy Skenes was. I don't think anybody was gonna run him down the way it was. I think I saw yesterday that Skenes going Rookie of the Year followed by Cy Young. He's the first pitcher to do that since Dwight Gooden back in the mid '80s. I mean, so you're talking 40 years since something like that has happened. He really is a once in a couple of generations guy. But like you said, Harry, I mean, Yamamoto was at his best when he needed to be at his best. He kept the Dodgers in it for a long time. I keep going back to the game he had in Baltimore where he nearly had the no-hitter and then the bullpen exploded. And what felt like it might have been the low mark of the season was actually kind of the turning point, that it was after that they really took off and started to go. And I think part of the reason is that Yamamoto was kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever, let's just keep playing. He didn't, kind of revel in the misery of it all. He'll get his. He just needs to keep doing what he's doing, and it'll come back around again. But finishing third, I think the biggest part for him, aside from finishing in the top 3 in the voting, was pitching the entire season and staying healthy the entire season. I think that's a real accomplishment and something that he should feel great about.
Before we go and focus again on Yoshinobu Yamamoto, I got to ask the question, is living in the Paul Skenes era right now going to be similar to what we were going through with Shohei Ohtani when he was with the Angels, where it was like individual performances, but he never got the opportunity to play in the postseason. So will somebody please rescue Paul Skenes and let him play some baseball that actually means something late in the season, late in October with postseason, because it just sucks that it's like, okay, he might be able to let loose in May and play it like if it's an October game, because he pretty much knows that the Pirates, with the way they construct things out there, they're not going to be playing in October.
No, they're not. The good news is the comparison to Ohtani is an interesting one. And while the Pirates are pretty poorly run and seem to make decisions that don't make sense to anybody, I don't know if they're as poorly run as the Anaheim Angels are. The Anaheim Angels might have been able – I don't know if you could have done less with Ohtani than the Angels did. They never mind made the playoffs. They never had a winning season. They never played a game past July that was actually meaningful at all. And then when it was time for him to go, they got nothing for him. I mean, think about the value of a player like Ohtani or Skenes and what you might be able to get back. I think that the Pirates will probably move him in a couple of years because he will be able to get you almost whatever you want. And hopefully he avoids the fate that Ohtani had to deal with for 6 years, because I've said this before too, but I love this because it puts a smile on my face. Paul Skenes is the same size as Aiden Hutchinson from the Detroit Lions. I mean, if Aiden Hutchinson is one of the great pass rushers in the NFL, okay, in the NFL, he hits quarterbacks, and he's the same size as Paul Skenes. It is extraordinary. But Yamamoto, I mean, what a season. And I would imagine he wouldn't trade a single thing, because while he might not have won the Cy Young Award, he became a legend. He became a legend of Dodger baseball. He became a legend of World Series baseball. He's somebody that you're going to talk about years from now, the way that, you might be a little young for this, Harry, but Jack Morris won Game 7, 1-0 in 10 innings for the Twins back in 1987. He pitched 10 innings and gave up 0 runs, and his name still comes up. And I think Yamamoto is going to be in a similar bucket.
And it's crazy to think back in December 2023 when the Dodgers signed Yamamoto, that monster deal, the biggest contract ever for a pitcher, 12 years, $325 million, before he even threw a single pitch in Major League Baseball. Everybody was like, oh, boy, yeah, he has been great in his home country. He has won, 3 equivalent of the Cy Young Awards over there. And it's like, okay, that's good, but how is it going to translate? Is the hype justified with all that money? And after 2 seasons, we're like, man, we potentially could have gotten a deal by giving him 12 years for $325 million.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember. So this was the Rams. For people that may or may not know this, I host the Rams pre-half and post-game show on the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 here in LA. And it was a Thursday night game, and the Rams were playing the New Orleans Saints. And it was the game that Ohtani showed up to. They cut to Ohtani in the box. SoFi Stadium goes crazy. It's like it was shortly after he had made his announcement that he was going to come over and become a Dodger the upcoming season. And then we go to do our postgame show a couple of hours later. And again, the buzz on Ohtani is brand new. It's only a couple of days old at that point, maybe even less. It might have only been a day or so. And then that night, right as we're getting ready to do the postgame show, the news breaks that Yoshinobu Yamamoto has signed with the Dodgers as well. And everybody's like, okay, great. I mean, everybody was excited, but we got Ohtani, right? Like, Ohtani's good. And Yamamoto was like, wow, they sure did spend a lot of money on a guy that's never played here. I wonder, I bet he's at least pretty good, if nothing else. And then it comes over. And while he's not Ohtani, he's exceeded expectations in his first 2 years. And that, holy smoke, they paid $300 million for a guy who's never played in the league to, like you just said, I think they got a steal on this guy. And by the way, and I'm not saying that the Dodgers won't continue to win or continue to compete. They've already validated the decisions to give both Ohtani and Yamamoto those deals. They went 2 for 2 right out of the gate. That doesn't happen. And if they get one more, even if they get no more, it's a deal that's already paid for itself, both in championships and in economics.
They had won 2 World Series from 1981 through 2019.
Yep.
Put that into perspective right there. They won 2-2 with these 2 guys as part of your team. But Yamamoto, 12-8 record, 2.49 ERA, over 200 strikeouts, and held hitters to a 183 batting average. That was the lowest in all of Major League Baseball. Yes, lower than Paul Skenes. Yes, lower than Christopher Sanchez, lower than Screwball. But at the end of the day, the numbers don't show. What they don't show is how Yamamoto became the glue that held the Dodgers rotation together when injuries hit them hard. He always showed up. He didn't skip a start. No excuses, just dominance. And when they needed him to pitch 9 innings in the postseason, he did it. When they needed him to pitch on short rest or no rest, he did it. I mean, this guy, I know that the Cy Young is a regular season award, but I feel that after now all of baseball knows Yamamoto, after what he did in the World Series and becoming the World Series MVP, they're going to have their eyes set on him. And it's like, okay, the voters are going to give him more respect in 2026 if he has a season at the very least similar to this one.
Yeah, I think so too. And, the numbers that people measure this stuff by, whether it's WHIP or ERA plus or wins or losses or Ks per 9 or whatever, great. Those are good numbers. And taking nothing away from Skenes and Sanchez or any of those guys. But one of the numbers that you can't, quantify is heart. There's another number that phrase I'd like to use, that the Locked On Network is a family network. So I'm not, but it's cojones, shall we say, that dude's got it in bucket loads. And so that he's able to go out there and do what he does is extraordinary. And it didn't end with a piece of hardware, an individual piece of hardware. It ended with him being a legend of Major League Baseball, Dodger baseball, World Series baseball.
So if Yamamoto finished 3rd this year, what happens when he gets a full healthy rotation around him? Another offseason of MLB adjustments and that quiet fire that we've seen since he left Japan. Don't be shocked if 2026 is the year of Yamamoto and the first of many Cy Young Award winning years for him. And that leads us to the next chapter of Dodgers excellence, because when you've got Ohtani doing what he did this postseason, we might be witnessing the greatest show baseball has ever seen. Next on Locked On Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani's Game 4 against Milwaukee wasn't just a highlight, it was a statement. 3 homers, 10 strikeouts, one unforgettable night. We'll talk about why MLB called it the legendary moment of the year and whether it might go down as the greatest postseason performance ever.
The NBA is back, which means there is no better place to get in on all of that hot basketball action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So let's say maybe you miss the start of the game. Let's say you just want to wait, that you're not quite sure how this game's going to unfold. You want to see what's going to happen. You want to see who's got that hot hand, and then you want to get in. Great. FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score that next bucket to that big fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay, which means, yep, you're right, that's a shot at even bigger payouts. So it's going to keep every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push and, you got a chance to get a little something. So right now, new customers at FanDuel, they're getting $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com, sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Check out our YouTube channel where you can subscribe for free. Smash that notification bell so you never miss a beat. Full episodes, hot takes, breaking Dodgers news, and more. If it drops, you're on it. That's how you become an everydayer here on Locked On Dodgers. The greatest show in baseball. We throw around the word legendary a lot in sports, but Shohei Ohtani's NLCS Game 4, that word barely does it justice. Because let's rewind. The Dodgers are facing the top-seeded Brewers, being 1 win away from punching their ticket to the World Series for a second year in a row. And then Ohtani goes full comic book mode. 3 home runs with the bat. Then from the mound, he throws 6 scoreless innings where he strikes out 10 batters. That's not just dominance. That's rewriting what we think is possible in a single game. Travis, I know that from the history books, it's Babe Ruth, what he was able to do both as a pitcher and a batter. He was never able to do things like this, like Shohei Ohtani did in Game 4 of the NLCS.
Yeah, it's really funny because there's going to be a generation of baseball fans that are coming up at some point that will never have actually seen Shohei Ohtani playing a game. And the reason I bring this up is because when I was a kid and I was falling in love with baseball and starting to learn about baseball and the great players in history, I thought Babe Ruth was a comic book character. I didn't think he was a real guy. I thought it was something that was, because of the candy bar. I just thought it was something that somebody made up about this guy that would hit more home runs than the entire league combined. He was big and he, did all these things. And it wasn't until later that you realize, oh my gosh, he was a real person playing in the league that was just that much better than everyone else. And you get these weird old-timey movie reel photos, but it looked fake, right? It didn't resonate. I think that there's going to be a generation of people that go, Ohtani never really did that, right? Like that's like exaggeration. That's hyperbole. That's one of those things that you're saying to make something sound better than it is. He didn't really hit 3 home runs in a playoff game and strike out 10 guys on the mound, right? That never really happened, actually. The difference is they're going to get to see all this stuff because everything is recorded and we get to see it all over and over and over again. That's the sort of player that Ohtani is. It doesn't make sense. And I do the show on ESPN 710 right after John Ireland does his show. John Ireland's the voice of the Lakers here in Los Angeles. And he talks about this. And he says one of the hardest things to do with people that do what we do, Harry, is to identify true greatness as it's happening in real time without the benefit of history to go back and look. And I think he's right. I think that this is one of those times, though, you don't need the benefit of time. You don't need the benefit of anything. You just go, holy blank, what is going on out there? And that's what Ohtani did that night. That's what Ohtani does frequently. Think about that. So that game against the Brewers comes in game 4. He goes from what in the world is wrong with Shohei Ohtani to MVP of the NLCS like that. And then a couple of nights later in the World Series, he gets on base 9 times. I mean, he did it again, and he does it again and again and again and again. And I don't know if we'll ever get used to it. I don't know if we'll ever fully appreciate it because it happens so frequently. It's like, oh yeah, Ohtani had another good night. He pitched 6 innings and hit a couple of home runs. It's like, it is an extraordinary accomplishment that none of us will ever see again, that may never happen again. And to just kind of let it soak over you is a real pleasure because this is probably the greatest baseball player to have ever lived, and we get to watch him every night.
You and I on this same podcast, we had said after game 3, it's like, okay, who's going to win the MVP in the NLCS? Yeah. And it was like, can it be a pitcher? Because Yamamoto and Snell were lights out. They were amazing, but I told you they only played in 1 game. How are they going to be the MVP of the series? And Shohei was okay, but wasn't spectacular. And then he goes out in game 4 and does what he does, both at the plate and on the mound. And it's like, well, that's a no-brainer right there. You had him both as a pitcher and contribute both as a pitcher and as a DH. He's definitely the MVP. And that game 4 got him to have MLB name that performance the legendary moment of the year. And honestly, it's very hard to argue, even though you had great moments that it beat out, like Nick Kurtz having a 4 home run game, sure. Cal Raleig's 60th home run as a catcher, even Ohtani's on back-to-back 50-50 seasons, but now in a different fashion with 50 home runs and 50 batters struck out. But that just tells you how iconic that night was. And I know that Dodger Stadium's capacity is 56,000 fans, but there's going to be over 100,000 people telling you that they were there for that night, because that's the type of night that it was at Dodger Stadium at Chavez Ravine, having Shohei do his excellence both at the plate and on the mound.
You're right. And I want to go back to Nick Kurtz and Cal Raleigh for a second, because those guys had amazing seasons. Guys have hit 4 home runs in games before. It doesn't happen a lot, but it's happened before. Guys have hit 60 home runs before. It doesn't happen a lot, but it's happened before. No one ever has done what he did, ever. They've been playing this game for a really long time. They will play it for another 150 years, and unless it's him, it will never happen again. So while Cal Raleigh's game where he goes over 60 is extraordinary, where Nick Kurtz nearly had 5, that has never happened again. He got really close, so that would have been an interesting situation. But it's not. He may not be the greatest slugger in baseball. He might be. He may not be the best pitcher in baseball. he's close, but he's the best baseball player to have ever walked the planet. And a performance like that, there's not as great as Nick Kurtz was. It's not even close.
Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to speak for you without it being correct. I had very, very high expectations of Shohei Ohtani, and I feel that you did as well, right? When he signed with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Even in my wildest dreams, I never expected Ohtani to hit 3 home runs and strike out 10 in the same game in the postseason with the spot to the World Series on the line. And he did it possible. And I feel that was Ohtani's defining moment as a Dodger, where it's like, holy crap, he's just a month into pitching at least 5 innings, and he did this in the playoffs, and we still got him for 8 years. That was like, okay, it was 1,000% worthy of the legendary moment of the year and potentially the legendary moment of the decade. But you know what? He might do something next year that makes it like, okay, this is bigger.
I think you make a great point that, look, when the Dodgers signed Ohtani, I think had you said, listen, they just gave him a 10-year deal worth, nearly $1 billion. What over 10 years, what's your wildest dream come true? And I think the answer would have been, he sets a Dodger record for home runs, did it twice. He does something we've never seen before, 50-50, the other 50-50, did it twice. Maybe he wins a couple of MVPs, 2 for 2. Maybe they win the World Series a few times. He's already got 2. Like he's checked the 10-year box of accolades in 2 seasons, and we're just getting started. Like he doesn't seem to ever back up. It's going to happen eventually. I'm assuming he's a human being where his performance will start to come down a little bit. But if you would have said everything he's done in the 2 years that he's been here happened over a 10-year window, you would have been like, yeah, sign me up. That's amazing. But he did it all in 2 years, and we're just getting started.
Hey, Father Time is undefeated. But if I were to put money on somebody beating it, I would put money on Shohei Ohtani. And the best part as baseball fans, because yes, Travis, you and I, we work in football, and we don't only talk about one sport to put a roof over our head and food on our table. The best part is the impact he had on the game, because one player put the entire sport on his back and had everybody talking about baseball. I fly with USC football on their charter back and forth to wherever they go. Everybody on that plane was like, dude, did you see what Shohei did last night after playing a football game? Because anywhere I go, I rock my Dodger gear, and I'm like, especially like when they were playing in the Game 7 of the World Series, I was calling a football game, and I was wearing my Dodgers jersey. I was like, hey, no matter what, I'm representing. But, man, that was amazing. And, look, we've had stars, future Hall of Famers in recent years, Kershaw, Betts, Freeman, but there's never been anything quite like this combination of talent and theater that Shohei Ohtani brings to baseball. And I'm glad that now it's put out there in the biggest stage of them all in October.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I think one of the things that's really interesting about Shohei too, and for very different reasons, but he's the first baseball player that is famous outside of baseball since Barry Bonds. Like, but Barry Bonds was, you could ask your grandmother, do you know who Barry Bonds is? And she'd be like, oh yeah, he's the guy that, this, that, and the other thing. She probably hated his guts, right? Shohei Ohtani, you ask your grandmother, you know who Shohei is? They're like, oh yeah, he's the guy that's awesome with the Dodgers. Like, baseball players are usually famous inside of baseball. Mike Trout could walk through a mall in St. Louis, Missouri and not get recognized by 5 people, right? Shohei Ohtani couldn't cross the street in Bismarck, North Dakota without causing a riot. That's how famous he is. And he's the only baseball player that kind of cuts through all of that stuff. They, Bryce Harper, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, they're famous inside of baseball. They're not famous outside of baseball. Ohtani is and will continue to be, and he's the first one since Bonds that I think's checked that box.
And we could make an argument of Bonds being that popular for the wrong reasons
as
well.
Sure. No, I mean Ohtani's popular for all the right reasons. Bonds was popular, or notorious might be a better word than popular, but Barry was pretty good too.
Oh no, he was great. Why? We know why though.
Well, hey, he's pretty good.
Hey, while the stars shine bright, roster moves don't stop. Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers make some quiet but interesting changes behind the plate. One familiar name leaves for Cincinnati, another joins the organization with big league bloodlines. Let's talk about what these catching moves really mean for 2026. Don't forget to follow Locked On Dodgers not only on YouTube, but on X, Instagram, and TikTok as well. You can find Travis on social media at Travis Rogers on X and Instagram. Rogers, just like Dodgers, but replace the D with an R. Meanwhile, I'm at Harry Ruiz on X, at Harry_Ruiz on Instagram, and at Harry Ruiz_ on TikTok. Tweaks behind the plate for Los Angeles. So let's get into the depth chart behind the dish because things just got a little more interesting. The Dodgers lost Ben Rortvedt, who was claimed off of waivers by the Reds. No surprise, the defense first, great at pitch framing, solid game caller. The bat has just never been there in a consistent fashion throughout his career. Last year, he had a 152 batting average in 44 games. But with the Dodgers, that number was 224 in 18 games played in September. Still, he did a very nice job filling in when both Will Smith and Dalton Rushing went down and even caught postseason innings. But with no minor league options left, there just wasn't any room for him with the Dodgers organization. Ben Rortvedt, we remember him, Travis, being involved in that trade that the Dodgers had before the deadline, and we were like, how do we say his name? And we definitely knew how to say it by mid-September after he played a couple of games, and he showed that he was a great quality player. And to be honest, I'll miss him in Dodger blue.
Yeah, look, he's going to be one of those guys that real Dodger fans 5 years from now, you'll be, hey, what was that guy that caught a bunch of innings at the end of the season? They won the World Series in 2025. Be not Will Smith. No, was it Rushing? No, he was here. What was his name again? And you're like, oh, right, Ben Rortvedt. He had a great run. He was the perfect guy at the perfect time. He seemed to connect with the pitchers in a way that was meaningful. He did his job, which is the ultimate compliment, right? That it wasn't one of these, hey, we got a huge problem back there, and this is costing us games. A guy that had zero expectations coming in, a guy that was never expected to be a part of a championship run, needed to be and was ready for the moment. And I've talked about this before. It is the ultimate example of a guy being a pro, where Will Smith is an all-star. He's not going anywhere. Dalton Rushing is the, air quote, the next big thing, the guy that they have big expectations for, who they're grooming to take over for Will Smith or turn into a left fielder or something. He's not going anywhere. There was no way where Ben Rortvedt was ever going to be a part of this until he was. And we need you to do it today. And that he was ready for that moment speaks to his professionalism, speaks to his preparation and everything else. He was a terrific Dodger, even if it was for a very brief time, but not a big surprise that somebody claimed him. Not a big surprise that the Dodgers decided to move on from him, because Will Smith, like I said, isn't going anywhere. And they're going to give Dalton Rushing a very long runway to try to figure out how to hit in the major leagues. They have a lot of investment in him. And they very much want to make that work.
For those fans that don't follow for 162 games, they probably don't remember that there was a moment in time in Dodger baseball where both Will Smith and Will Smith and Dalton Rushing were hurt. And Ben Rortvedt came through big time for this Dodgers team. And that was when the Dodgers were fighting to get that divisional title. So it was a very important time. And coincidentally, the moment he came up and he was up there catching, the pitching staff just turned it up a notch, and they were fantastic. So, Rortvedt, a tip of the cap to you. Thank you so much for what you did for the Dodgers. But now with Rortvedt out, enter Eliezer Alfonzo Jr., the Dodgers' first new signing of the offseason. He's 26, Venezuelan, and the son of former big leaguer Eliezer Alfonzo. He's been grinding in the Tiger system since he was 17, and he finally reached AAA this year. His number, solid, nothing eye-popping, but the Dodgers have a knack for finding those guys who blossom in their system.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's always really interesting with the Dodgers is when put it this way, Harry, if I were one of the 29 other teams and the Dodgers said, I'll take that guy, I'd be like, uh-oh.
Something.
Yeah, what do they know that I don't know? what are they going to be able to fix that we weren't able to fix? So it's always, and they don't bat 1,000 on that, but they get a lot more right than they get wrong. You could go back to Tyler Anderson, Justin Turner, Chris Taylor, Max Muncy. There's a bunch of guys that they've put their magic touch on that turn in to really good players. And who knows, maybe this is the next one. But anytime they sign one of these guys, it's always very interesting because it feels like they know something that no one else does.
Exactly. And look, realistically, Alfonso's signing is about depth. So this isn't a blockbuster move. It's another small example of how the Dodgers keep the machine running, always developing, always preparing for the next need before it even shows up.
And you look, I mean, who thought that Ben Rortvedt was going to be a part of this? You just never know which guy is going to be the guy that is, a difference maker. And he may be the next difference. And it may be a week. It may be a month. It may be a half a season. You just never know. And this is, again, why I give Rortvedt so much credit. He stayed ready the entire time. And when the call came, he was ready to go. And nothing speaks to his professionalism more than that.
And look, right now, I'm pretty sure any player that signs with the Dodgers organization, they're like, holy crap, I'm going to the Dodgers.
But remember Alex Call, right? When they made the trade with the Nets, he's like, I'm going to the World Series. He was right. he was right, and he's got a ring to show for it.
And he won it, exactly. So welcome, bienvenido a los Dodgers, Eliezer Alfonzo Jr. All right, that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. If you're still craving more baseball talk, have the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night be your second listen. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Shohei Ohtani is about to bring another MVP back to Los Angeles, his third straight, his second wearing Dodger blue. Tomorrow, Friday, we'll talk about what this means for the Dodgers dynasty and Ohtani's place in baseball history. Travis, spoiler alert, I know that the MLB awards are tonight, but he's going to win it unanimously. Sorry to everybody watching, that's a spoiler.
He's already cleared space in the trophy room and had the little spotlight installed to shine right on it, and probably needs to build a whole nother cabinet because he's not done yet.
Exactly. We appreciate you riding with us. Until next time, keep it real. Keep it Dodger Blue.